Hi, I'm Mike Brofman, and welcome to another episode of Song and Wine, Brooklyn Art Song Society's web series where we discuss our upcoming concerts over a glass of wine. I'm joined today by Devaney Smith, who is joining us on November 1st for our complete performance of Joseph Canteloup's Chants. So that's what we'll be discussing. Before we do so, I want to give a shout out to our wine sponsor, Waterfront Wines. They are located on 360 Furman Street in Brooklyn Heights, and they specialize in organic and all-natural wines, so check them out. We have an Argentinian red today from them, so let's give it a try. Cheers.
Cheers.
It's good. So, let's dive right in. This might be a hard question because I feel like there's so many great songs in Chants. But what would you say if you had to pick one desert island song? What would it be?
Oh, I think the one I'm most immediately drawn to is the La Desleixado. It's slow, it's drawn out, but the atmosphere that the pianist creates and how that complements the vocal line, I'm just like all over it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, especially these songs. They're really, on one level, they're really arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
Canteloup did not write the melodies; he just took,
Right.
and so the piano part's really what's original.
Yeah.
But I think what I always would love about Canteloup in this cycle is that the song, your part is quite simple.
Mm-hmm.
It's just these little folk melodies, and then the piano parts or the orchestral parts, if you're doing the orchestral version, are out of Strauss and Mahler,
Yeah.
and just this lush, romantic, and the whole cycle plays with, which I think you hit on, the sort of dichotomy between the two.
Right.
That somehow this very simple, straightforward melody can sort of be up against this Strauss-Wagner orchestra,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes sense. It doesn't seem like overbearing because it captures something about the spirit. And I think a lot of the songs have what you mentioned, that feeling of time like slowing down.
Yeah.
Because it's something, about how he has these long, drawn out lines. Sometimes in the orchestral version, it's with like an oboe or a woodwind instrument,
Right.
with these long melodies, or just, like these arpeggiated passages that just sit on one harmony for like a minute. This is probably a unique experience for both listeners if you come to the concert and the performers too, in that the language that these songs are in is a strange language. It's not in French, even though Joseph Canteloup was French and lived in Paris most of his life. It's in Occitan,
Yeah.
which is an odd language. So what was your experience learning this language that you probably haven't sung before? How do you approach it when you have to sing in a language that you neither speak nor have any reference to?
Well, I have looked at a lot of different reference points. There are a lot of papers and research. There's a lot of research done on what the pronunciation, first of all, should be of this language, and I think everyone disagrees. And for someone like me who's a little bit type A, that's that's hard because I'm like, what do I use and what is correct? So I've kind of decided on first a pronunciation that I'm going to use based on the research that I've done. But that has nothing to do with what the words convey or their meaning, sort of. So I've been writing the language out a lot with the translation that I partly did myself and partly have found. And I've been living with that in a sort of like bookish sense without the music for a while.
Yeah.
Just because it's not, with French and Italian and German, I'm not fluent really in any of those languages, but I sing in them a lot and I understand the meaning of way more of the words than I do in this case. And I just want it to be as internalized as I can possibly make it. Because although the audience will likely not know the language either, I think it really shows when I have not done the work to internalize what I'm singing. And it doesn't mean that I have to show them what every word means. For me, it's just a matter of there being truth in everything, every sentence that I utter, no matter what language I'm singing in.
Like I found this akitan very cool, and I'm always interested as a pianist. I feel like every language has this sort of built-in rhythm that you and this, like, you know, 4 quarter notes in French is a very different thing than 4 quarter notes in German. And akitan to me has this, you know, interesting thing. I know a lot of the songs have sort of like nonsense words, like, you know, la di da di booty booty da di da di da.
Lots of nonsense.
And in a way, but in a weird way, that like the nonsense is like a very particular nonsense to akitan. That, like, you know, it's almost like the nonsense sounds like nonsense akitan. So to me, that's sort of, if you're listening to it and you're like, I don't know what this language is, not only do I not speak it, but no one in the room speaks it, and the person singing it doesn't speak it either.
Right.
I think that's sort of what to listen to.
Absolutely.
In works like this.
Yeah.
I think one, like in the scores, when I was looking through the scores, some of the songs are marked rude, and I think it's a French word, but it's basically, some of the songs are purposely sung with a sort of ugly, you know, like a non-professional, non-operatic voice. You're supposed to sing it like a folk. You know, we forget that these folk songs were sung like while people were like doing the laundry. It's sometimes what the music requires is not prettiness of sound,
right,
but sort of authenticity.
Right.
I think.
Which is something that I love about this rep, because that frees me up to make sounds that I would not otherwise make on a proper art song or whatever.
Yeah. So my final question for you is, to me, there's a challenge in music like this that actually, you know, I write program notes, and I write sort of for the subscribers. There's a special bonus song by song like analysis that so people can read before, and it was a little hard to like analyze these songs because they're a little bit like, the texts are a little bit like, I am sitting by the river. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all that happens. And you know, and there's something sing-songy about the melodies because they're quite simple, and it's almost so. It's like, how do you approach music that's almost like disarmingly simple and bring something to it without putting stuff on it that's maybe not there, and then also not just sort of making it feel trite and just sort of silly.
Right. I feel like the songs that I'm doing specifically, I have a couple sort of silly ones where I'm like chasing roosters and things like that. I think for the purpose of my preparation of these songs, I feel like I'm so about characters, and I feel like there's some very universal emotional things that happen in these songs. There's rejection and unrequited love and those sorts of universal themes that come up a lot in these very simple texts. So I like to make those the sort of the emotional peaks of the set that I'm singing, and everything else just informs those characters. They're just different aspects of those sorts of like emotional universal moments that we find in the text, like La Delechado, Lubosu is another one that deals with unrequited love. So those are my emotional anchors in the set, and then everything else I kind of want to stay in that same character, but just allow the songs that are sort of more about the environment and things like that just be things that are affecting the character that is deeply hurt in the next song. I'm very much a performer that likes to hook into characters and let that motivate the way that I perform and sing and think about the songs in a set.
The way I sort of think about Cantaloupe and the Chants is Cantaloupe, you know, lived through 2 world wars, and that was a very turbulent time in history, and there was just this sort of longing for like an olden time when things seemed simpler. There's something profound about sort of simply just like being, and we don't, you know, like I kind of went sort of jokingly, there's a song where just like the entire song is like, I'm sitting by the river.
Yeah.
And it's like, how much in our life do we just sit by a river?
Yeah.
And I think that's what these songs are trying to tap in with, their simplicity of that, like we're losing that. And I think that, you know, composers of the late 19th century and early 20th century saw the sort of cogs of the sort of capitalist machine starting to whir.
Right.
And they realized that like the world that was sort of more bucolic, more in nature, the world that was slower paced it was quickly going away.
Right.
And, you know, they felt like if they didn't capture, you know, this experience, it was going to get lost.
That's why we have to do it. There's an urgency. I feel like an urgency about performing these songs, and they're not saying anything political or subversive, really. There's no big statement in that way, but it is a way of life that is very foreign to the way that we are all living.
Yeah, and one that I think we could all use a healthy dose of sometimes.
Absolutely.
Which is a good way to plug the concert coming up Friday, November 1st at the Brooklyn Historical Society. We're doing the complete Chants, which is in 5 volumes. They're written over about 30 years. And we're doing it with 4 sopranos, and I'm going to try to name them now. Stephanie Smith, Laura Strickland, Maria Valdez, and Marnie Breckenridge. They're joined on piano by Danny Zellebor and Brent Funderburk. Tickets are on sale now. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.